The year is 1862. A dense fog clings to the murky waters of the Yazoo River. Slowly, deliberately, a dark silhouette cuts through the mist, the USS Cairo. A marvel of engineering, an ironclad designed to dominate. Its 251-man crew, veterans of fierce river battles, scans the tree-lined banks for the known enemy. But on this cold December morning, the true threat lay unseen, beneath the surface, poised to introduce a new, terrifying chapter in the annals of war. This was a vessel forged in an era of unprecedented industrial might, a symbol of Union power projected onto the Confederate heartland. Yet, in a span of mere minutes, an invisible force would challenge its very existence, leaving behind a chilling mystery that reverberated through the conflict and beyond. Before we plunge into the depths of this remarkable true story, we invite you to share. From what corner of the world are you watching this Hidden Files episode today? Drop your location in the comments below. Now let's journey back to that fateful morning on the Yazoo River and uncover the story of the USS Cairo. On the frigid morning of December 12, 1862, a thick, impenetrable fog cloaked the Yazoo River, transforming the waterways of Mississippi into a spectral, silent world. Visibility was severely limited, creating an oppressive sense of uncertainty and isolation. Through this chilling shroud, the ironclad USS Cairo advanced with methodical slowness. Its angular silhouette, a testament to modern naval engineering, cut through the vapor like a phantom, its paddle wheels churning with a muted, rhythmic hum against the turbid waters. Aboard the Cairo, the crew of 251 men maintained a tense, almost unnatural silence. These were veterans of fierce river battles, hardened by the brutal realities of the Civil War. Yet, an unspoken apprehension permeated the vessel as their senses strained against the suffocating fog, scrutinizing every indistinct sound or shadow from the unseen banks. At the helm, Commander Thomas O. Selfridge, Jr., a man of only 24 years, meticulously scanned the dense, vegetation-choked riverbanks through his spyglass. The fog rendered the instrument nearly useless beyond the Cairo's bow, amplifying the sense of vulnerability. Selfridge's youth belied a depth of experience with the devastating power of armored vessels. He carried a unique burden, for he was a survivor of the USS Cumberland, a wooden frigate tragically sunk by the formidable Confederate ironclad CSS Virginia just 9 months prior at Hampton Roads. That harrowing experience had shaped his perception of naval warfare, instilling in him a profound respect for its evolving, brutal realities. Navigating these treacherous fog-bound waters, a chilling premonition seemed to cling to the very air, a silent warning only the most experienced could discern. He knew that the enemy, deprived of industrial parity, would resort to ingenious, often unseen methods of attack. To truly comprehend the USS Cairo's formidable presence on that foreboding morning and the implicit confidence placed in its iron hull, one must look back 6 months to a pivotal moment in naval history. In June of 1862, the Mississippi River bore witness to a transformation that shattered centuries of maritime tradition. The Union's strategic objective was vital: seize control of the river, the artery that bisected the Confederacy. A key engagement unfolded at Memphis, Tennessee, between June 15th and 17th. There, the USS Essex, a modified City-class ironclad, spearheaded a mission to descend the Mississippi and dismantle the Confederate river fleet. For 3 days, the Essex, alongside her sister ironclads, the Cairo, the Carondelet, and the St. Louis, engaged in a ferocious struggle that fundamentally altered the perception of naval power. The engagement at Memphis was a stark and devastating demonstration of the ironclad's overwhelming superiority. The thunderous roar of the Union batteries and the acrid scent of black powder painted a hellish tableau. The Confederate fleet, composed primarily of wooden gunboats, stood little chance. Their projectiles often ricocheted harmlessly off the Union ironclad's sloped armor, while the ironclad's 9-inch Dahlgren smoothbore cannons launched explosive shells with devastating precision. 4 Confederate wooden gunboats were sent to the river bottom, their timber hulls splintering against the relentless assault of the Union's iron monsters. This decisive victory declared a profound truth. The era of wooden warships had unequivocally ended. The Mississippi had become a crucible for a new age of warfare, where armor and explosive projectiles reigned supreme. The psychological impact was immense, fueling Union confidence while forcing the Confederacy to scramble for a counter. The USS Cairo, having actively participated in this victory, was itself a revolutionary vessel. She belonged to a class of 7 armored gunboats specifically designed to dominate the interior rivers of the Confederacy. Her conception was a testament to American ingenuity under the duress of war. The vision for these pioneering vessels originated with the brilliant naval engineer Samuel M. Pooke, then 54 years old, whose innovative design addressed the unique challenges of riverine warfare. Pooke's plans called for a flat-bottomed, shallow-draft vessel, engineered to navigate the often constrained, unpredictable, and shoal-prone conditions of the Mississippi and its tributaries, while still delivering formidable firepower. The ambitious and urgent task of constructing these pioneering ironclads fell to the industrialist James B. Eads, a 42-year-old engineering genius from St. Louis, with an intimate understanding of the Mississippi River's demands. Working at Mound City, Illinois, Eads and his teams achieved an astonishing feat. The Cairo and her 6 sisters were built in a mere 100 days during the intense autumn and winter of 1861-1862. This breakneck schedule underscored the Union's formidable industrial might and its strategic urgency. The Cairo was 175 feet in length, displacing 888 tons, a substantial warship for riverine operations. Her massive wooden hull was protected by 2.5-inch thick iron plates, particularly robust at the bow and casemate sides. Crucially, these plates were inclined at a steep 35-degree angle. This innovative sloped armor was designed not to stop projectiles outright, but to deflect them, significantly reducing the effective force of enemy fire and increasing the chances of ricochet. This principle of deflection was a revolutionary concept in naval armor design. Her formidable armament comprised 13 heavy cannons, strategically positioned to maximize offensive capability. These included 3 powerful 8-inch 64-pounder smoothbores, 4 42-pounder rifles, offering superior accuracy and penetration, 6 32-pounder smoothbores, and 3 30-pounder howitzers. This diverse array allowed the ironclad to unleash a devastating weight of metal upon riverine targets and shore batteries alike. Powering this floating fortress were 2 steam engines, fed by 5 boilers burning prodigious quantities of coal, driving its distinctive side paddle wheels. While capable of delivering immense firepower, the Cairo's maximum speed of only 5 knots against the current made her inherently vulnerable in narrow, confined waters where maneuverability was paramount. This strategic limitation was a calculated trade-off for armor and firepower. The vast amounts of coal consumed necessitated constant refueling, and a fine, pervasive layer of black soot perpetually coated the entire crew, a constant reminder of the vessel's industrial heart. The USS Cairo thus represented a radical transformation in riverine warfare, a cutting-edge symbol of Union strength and technological advancement, specifically designed to penetrate and dominate the Confederate interior. Its innovative design, rapid construction, and unparalleled firepower established it as a landmark in naval technology, a beacon of industrial might sent to control the enemy's vital arteries and accelerate the Anaconda Plan. It was a vessel built for dominance, seemingly impervious, yet unknowingly sailing toward an unprecedented challenge. The power of the USS Cairo, so vividly demonstrated at Memphis, was not merely an exhibition of industrial might. It was a critical instrument in a grander, audacious strategy to dismantle the Confederacy. General Winfield Scott, the venerable architect of the Union's military operations, had conceived the Anaconda Plan early in the war. This vision sought to systematically strangle the Confederate States by 2 primary means: a relentless naval blockade of its extensive coastline, and, crucially, complete control of the Mississippi River. The latter objective aimed to sever the Confederacy's western territories from its eastern heartland, thereby disrupting vital supply lines, communication networks, and troop movements. For President Abraham Lincoln, the Mississippi was more than just a waterway. It was the father of waters, the nation's lifeblood, and its complete control was an absolute necessity for Union victory. He understood implicitly that dividing the Confederacy along its most significant natural boundary would cripple its ability to wage war, isolating resource-rich regions and demoralizing its populace. By the summer of 1862, significant progress had been made toward fulfilling Scott's ambitious vision. New Orleans, the South's largest city and most crucial port, had fallen to Union forces in April, securing the mouth of the Mississippi. The decisive naval victory at Memphis in June, in which the Cairo participated, had secured a substantial northern stretch of the river. However, a formidable and seemingly impenetrable obstacle remained. A challenging 250-mile segment of the Mississippi, stretching between Vicksburg, Mississippi and Port Hudson, Louisiana, remained firmly in Confederate hands. Of these two bastions, Vicksburg became the ultimate strategic prize, a veritable obsession for both Union and Confederate command, its capture viewed as the linchpin to the entire Anaconda Plan. Vicksburg was no ordinary city, nor was its defense conventional. Perched atop a series of steep, heavily wooded bluffs, some soaring over 200 feet above the river's turbulent currents, it commanded a hairpin bend in the Mississippi. This unique and formidable geographical advantage earned it the enduring moniker, Gibraltar of the West. Its elevated position allowed Confederate artillery batteries, strategically placed along the bluffs, to rain down devastating fire upon any Union fleet attempting to pass. The sheer height provided an unparalleled field of fire, making any naval approach a suicidal endeavor. The city itself, with its intricate network of ravines, entrenchments, and fortified positions, was virtually impregnable from a frontal assault, whether by land or by river. Under the determined command of General John C. Pemberton, a Pennsylvanian who had made the difficult and deeply personal choice to cast his lot with the South, Vicksburg harbored a formidable garrison of over 30 Auxiliary Confederate soldiers, making it a bastion of Southern defense and a crucial linchpin for maintaining the Confederacy's east-west communication and supply lines. Pemberton, a West Point graduate and career soldier, was resolute in his defense, understanding the immense strategic value of his command. It was into this strategic maelstrom that the USS Cairo and its sister ironclads were inexorably drawn. During the sweltering summer and vibrant autumn of 1862, the Cairo became a spearhead in the relentless Union campaign to encircle and isolate Vicksburg. This was not a single decisive battle, but a brutal, attritional war fought across hundreds of miles of waterways. Her operations were primarily conducted in the Mississippi's numerous, often narrow and winding tributaries, the Yazoo, the Arkansas, and the White River, where the environment itself proved as much an adversary as the Confederate forces. These expeditions were characterized by constant vigilance against hidden Confederate coastal batteries, which would often open fire from concealed positions within the dense riverine forests. These were often hit-and-run engagements, forcing the ironclads to engage in protracted duels with an unseen enemy, maneuvering as best they could in constricted channels while directing punishing fire into the foliage. Sniper fire, a constant, insidious threat, peppered the decks, forcing the crew to remain perpetually alert and seek cover behind the casemate's iron walls or in lower deck spaces. Every patrol transformed into a perilous journey, where a moment of inattention could cost a life. The ever-present danger of ambushes from dense riverine forests added to the psychological toll, with unseen enemies capable of striking from unexpected angles, turning calm stretches of river into sudden deadly traps. The narrowness of these tributaries, unlike the broad expanse of the Mississippi, limited the ironclad's maneuverability, making them larger, less agile targets for Confederate marksmen and concealed artillery. The arduous nature of these patrols stretched the ironclads and their crews to their absolute limits. The oppressive heat and stifling humidity of the southern summer were relentless, exacerbating the already strenuous conditions aboard the crowded ironclad vessels. Steam engines radiated intense heat, and the ventilation was minimal, creating a suffocating environment in the lower decks. Yet the Cairo, a symbol of industrial might and engineering prowess, proved its resilience time and again, earning a reputation that instilled both fear in the enemy and confidence in its crew. In July, while supporting Union land operations near Vicksburg, The Cairo endured a sustained bombardment from Confederate artillery positions. Heavy shells, designed to cripple and sink, impacted its iron plates with deafening metallic clangs that resonated through the entire vessel, vibrating through the deck and into the very bones of the crew. On a conventional wooden ship, such impacts would have signaled catastrophic damage and imminent sinking, splintering hulls and igniting fires. However, the Cairo's innovative sloped armor absorbed and deflected these blows with remarkable efficiency, proving its design effectiveness and reinforcing its burgeoning reputation for invincibility. Despite the jarring concussions, superficial dents, and the psychological shock of being under concentrated fire, the Cairo remained operational, its powerful guns continuing to pound Confederate defenses, a testament to its robust construction. The relentless pace of operations continued into August, when the Cairo's formidable guns were once again unleashed during the bombardment of Confederate positions at Baton Rouge, Louisiana. Here, her powerful Dahlgren cannons contributed significantly to the Union's efforts to suppress rebel activity and secure strategic points along the river, directly supporting the Union's drive to control key cities. By November, the Ironclad had traversed thousands of miles through the Mississippi's muddy, winding tributaries. Its powerful steam engines, though robust, constantly demanded meticulous maintenance and repair from the ceaseless operations and the corrosive effects of the river water. The continuous service, the constant threat of enemy engagement, and the unforgiving river environment had undeniably worn down the crew. Exhaustion was a persistent companion, visible in their weary eyes and slow movements, yet a profound sense of pride permeated the ranks. They served on one of the most powerful vessels in the Union fleet, a symbol of technological supremacy that had thus far proven impervious to Confederate assaults. This perceived invincibility, a hard-earned reputation forged in iron and fire, however, would soon face a challenge unlike any previously encountered. A challenge born not of brute force, but of ingenuity, concealment, and a new, terrifying weapon. The undeniable superiority of the Union's ironclad fleet, epitomized by vessels like the USS Cairo, had presented the Confederacy with an existential crisis. Lacking the sprawling industrial infrastructure of the North, factories, shipyards, and foundries capable of churning out steel and iron at an unprecedented rate, the South found itself unable to contest the Union's riverine dominance through conventional means. This stark disparity in resources compelled Confederate engineers and strategists to seek alternative, unconventional solutions, born out of a desperate ingenuity. Their response would usher in a new, terrifying dimension of naval warfare, the development and deployment of what they termed torpedoes, known today as naval mines. At the forefront of this burgeoning, clandestine arms race was Admiral Matthew Fontaine Maury, a figure of profound intellectual caliber. Maury, then 56 years old, was not merely a military officer, he was a renowned oceanographer, astronomer, and hydrographer, a scientist hailed globally as the pathfinder of the seas for his groundbreaking work in mapping ocean currents and winds. His pre-war research on the complex dynamics of water and pressure, originally intended for charting safe maritime passages, was now grimly repurposed for destructive ends. Maury brought a scientific rigor to the embryonic field of underwater warfare, understanding that the very medium of water could be weaponized to negate the enemy's material advantage. He envisioned these devices as a democratic weapon, one that could equalize the naval strength of the belligerent parties, a prophetic statement that resonated with the desperate reality of the Confederacy. The devices themselves were deceptively simple, reflecting both the scarcity of resources and the ingenuity of their creators. These primitive but lethal torpedoes were typically constructed from repurposed wooden barrels or robust iron or copper caissons filled with substantial quantities of gunpowder. They were then anchored just below the river's surface in carefully selected, narrow channels, areas where Union vessels were forced to navigate a predictable course. The methods of detonation varied. Some were designed to be contact mines, triggered by the direct impact of a passing ship against a projecting primer. Others, more sophisticated and equally insidious, utilized electrical wires snaking from the submerged explosives to hidden galvanic batteries on the riverbanks. This allowed Confederate operators, concealed within the dense foliage, to detonate the charge at the precise moment a Union vessel passed directly over it, ensuring maximum destructive effect. This gave the Confederates a precise, remote control capability that amplified the psychological impact of the unseen weapon. Initially, this novel form of warfare was met with considerable disdain from many officers on both sides. In an era where naval combat was still largely governed by notions of honorable engagement, brave ships dueling in open water, guns blazing, the use of concealed, indiscriminate mines was widely condemned as a dishonorable tactic. It was perceived as a cowardly, underhanded approach that circumvented the traditional direct confrontation of man against man, ship against ship. Such weapons were seen as tools of assassins, not soldiers. Yet the brutal calculus of war, particularly for the resource-starved Confederacy, transcended such chivalric notions. The potential to disable or sink a multi-million-dollar ironclad with a device costing mere dozens of dollars in materials was a strategic imperative that overshadowed any perceived ethical breaches. As the late autumn of 1862 bled into the early days of December, the strategic stakes escalated dramatically. General William T. Sherman, then 42 years old and a formidable Union commander, was meticulously planning a major offensive against Vicksburg. Recognizing the city's invulnerability from a direct river assault, Sherman devised a bold flanking maneuver, an attack from the rear, through the intricate and swampy Yazoo River Delta. This required a massive amphibious operation, necessitating the transport of approximately 3,200 Union soldiers on a fleet of transport ships. For this ambitious plan to succeed, the Yazoo River had to be cleared of any obstructions, especially the increasingly feared Confederate torpedoes. It was a mission of paramount importance, and the task of clearing the treacherous waterway fell directly upon the shoulders of the USS Cairo and its seasoned crew. Commander Thomas O. Selfridge, Jr., just 24, now faced a profound and unnerving challenge. He was intimately aware of the dangers of modern naval warfare, having personally endured one of its most brutal evolutions. His survival of the USS Cumberland's sinking at Hampton Roads by the CSS Virginia just months prior had left an indelible mark. He had witnessed firsthand how rapidly naval technology could render the seemingly invincible obsolete, and how easily human lives could be consumed by the voracious appetite of progress. The very notion of an unseen enemy lurking beneath the murky surface was particularly unsettling. Selfridge understood the primitive but lethal efficacy of Maury's torpedoes. He recognized that the very attributes that made the Cairo so formidable, its heavy iron hull, its deep draft, its relatively slow speed in confined waters, also made it an ideal target for such a weapon. Yet the urgency of Sherman's mission offered no room for hesitation. The fate of a major Union offensive, and potentially the entire Vicksburg campaign, hinged on the Cairo's ability to navigate and clear the Yazoo. Driven by a profound sense of duty, and despite the chilling undercurrent of his past experience, Selfridge was compelled to confront this new, insidious threat. The powerful, seemingly impregnable Ironclad, which had previously faced cannon and rifle fire with defiant resilience, was now steaming toward an enemy that operated in silence, striking from the unseen depths, poised to rewrite the rules of engagement once more. The dense, chilling morning of December 12, 1862, settled over the Yazoo River with an almost palpable weight. A thick, suffocating fog, heavy with moisture and the biting cold of winter, enveloped the waterway, reducing visibility to a mere few yards. This vaporous shroud transformed the familiar landscape into an indistinct, eerie realm, contributing to an atmosphere of profound tension and unease that permeated the air. Through this opaque curtain, the ironclad USS Cairo advanced with a slow, deliberate, almost hesitant pace. Its powerful paddle wheels, usually a loud declaration of its presence, churned the murky waters with a muted, rhythmic thrum, swallowed by the oppressive silence. Accompanying her, maintaining formation in the treacherous conditions, were two other Union vessels, the equally formidable ironclad USS Pittsburgh and the Ram Queen of the West, a swifter, though less armored steamboat designed for impact operations. The small flotilla moved cautiously, their collective mission to clear the river of any obstructions for General Sherman's impending assault on Vicksburg, a critical preliminary to a major Union offensive. Aboard the Cairo, every man was on high alert. Months of relentless riverine warfare, replete with hidden shore batteries, harassing sniper fire from dense riverbanks, and the constant threat of ambushes, had ingrained a state of perpetual vigilance. Lookouts, straining their eyes against the swirling mist, peered into the impenetrable gloom, searching for any telltale sign of Confederate activity, the flicker of a hidden campfire, the silhouette of a soldier, or the glint of artillery. Below deck, the rhythmic hum of the engines and the clang of shovels feeding the boilers provided a constant, yet subdued, backdrop to the strained silence on the main deck. Commander Thomas O. Selfridge, Jr., positioned in the pilot house, peered through his spyglass, his young face grim with intense concentration. The recent intelligence regarding Confederate torpedoes, primitive as they might be, had added a new, insidious layer to the inherent dangers of the Yazoo, a threat that resonated deeply with his personal experience of the USS Cumberland's catastrophic loss less than a year prior. He understood the stakes. He knew the enemy would use any means necessary. At approximately 8:00 a.m., a sharp, urgent cry from a lookout on the Cairo's bow broke the tense silence. "Object sighted dead ahead. Looks like barrels." The report, amplified by the morning air, was swiftly relayed to Selfridge. Through the dense fog that clung to the water, several dark cylindrical shapes were faintly discernible, bobbing precariously close to the surface, their purpose unmistakably ominous. Other crew members quickly confirmed the sighting, their voices laced with a mix of apprehension and grim resolve. These were not mere debris. They were clearly positioned, clearly a threat. Selfridge, recognizing the immediate danger but still confident in the revolutionary armor and robust construction of his vessel, ordered a cautious advance. His standing orders for encountering suspected torpedoes were to proceed slowly, trusting the Cairo's heavily armored bow to either detonate the devices safely by direct contact or to sweep them aside without damage. This was a calculated risk, based on the assumption, reinforced by months of battle, that even if a mine exploded, the Ironclad's formidable design would withstand the blast. It was a strategy born of necessity, as there were no specialized mine-clearing vessels available for such extensive operations. At precisely 8:15 a.m., the river erupted with a force that defied imagination. A monumental explosion, felt more than heard as a crushing, concussive wave, struck the USS Cairo with devastating power. The entire 888-ton vessel shuddered violently, heaving upward with a sickening lurch before slamming back down onto the water, as if struck by a giant unseen fist from the depths. A massive, jagged hole was instantly torn into the unarmored underside of the hull, directly beneath the engine room, a critical, vulnerable artery of the ship. Within seconds, the freezing, muddy water of the Yazoo River surged inward with overwhelming power, rushing through the gaping wound, its icy torrent flooding the critical machinery spaces. The sudden, immense pressure ruptured steam pipes, adding agonizing shrieks of escaping superheated vapor to the terrifying roar of the inundation. Lights flickered and died as water shorted out electrical systems, plunging sections of the ship into sudden darkness. Men were thrown from their feet, grappling for purchase amidst the chaos. Before the crew could fully comprehend the full extent of the damage or initiate effective countermeasures, a second explosion, even more catastrophic than the first, ripped through the hull just instants later. This second blast, positioned slightly aft of the first, struck an already weakened structure and sealed the Ironclad's fate with grim finality. It created another immense breach, effectively crippling any chance of containing the flooding. The ship, once a symbol of unwavering invincibility, began to settle rapidly by the stern, the deck listing noticeably as the weight of the incoming water became insurmountable. The initial shock and confusion gave way to a desperate primal scramble for survival. In the engine room, amidst the inferno of ruptured steam lines, swirling debris, and the thunderous roar of the incoming river, engineers and firemen fought a futile, heroic battle. Covered in soot, drenched in icy water, and scalded by steam, They desperately attempted to keep the pumps functioning, to seal off compartments, to buy precious moments for their comrades above. But the flooding was catastrophic, relentless, and far beyond their capacity to stem. The engine room, the very heart of the vessel, was being consumed by the river, its machinery grinding to a halt under the assault of the cold water. The USS Cairo, a marvel of modern naval engineering and a testament to Union industrial might, was dying. In a mere 12 minutes that must have stretched into an eternity for the men trapped within its iron confines, fighting for air and escape, the vessel, which had once terrorized Confederate forces and defied cannon fire, began its inexorable descent. Its heavy iron casemate tilted sharply, water swiftly engulfing the lower deck as the bow rose momentarily, as if in a final, defiant gesture against its fate. The great side paddle wheels, still driven by the last vestiges of steam pressure, spun uselessly in the air for a few agonizing seconds before disappearing beneath the turbid surface with a final, mournful groan of buckling metal and rushing water. The smokestack, still emitting a plume of vapor, marked the Ironclad's last breath as it slid entirely under the cold, murky waters of the Yazoo, settling firmly into the deep, soft mud at a depth of 36 feet, its presence now merely a phantom beneath the waves. Amidst the chaos of the sinking, an almost miraculous feat occurred. The entire crew, all 251 men, managed to escape the rapidly disappearing vessel. In the desperate final moments, lifeboats were quickly launched into the churning water, swiftly filled by men scrambling for their lives, propelled by instinct and sheer terror. Those who could not reach the boats, or whose escape routes were blocked by the rapidly rising water and sinking decks, leapt into the icy river, grabbing at floating debris or swimming desperately towards the relative safety of the nearby riverbanks. From the decks of the Pittsburgh and the Queen of the West, Union sailors watched in stunned disbelief as their sister ship, the supposedly impregnable Cairo, vanished beneath the waves. Their shouts of warning and assistance were muffled by the fog and the shock of the event. The spectacle of the mighty Ironclad submerging, its powerful form dissolving into the river, must have been simultaneously terrifying and mesmerizing, a chilling testament to the unpredictable, brutal nature of modern warfare. For the Confederate observers, hidden on the riverbanks, it was a profound triumph of ingenuity over overwhelming industrial force. A weapon that cost perhaps $50 in materials had successfully destroyed a state-of-the-art warship that cost $101,808 to construct. The sinking of the USS Cairo on December 12, 1862, sent a shockwave through the Union command and naval ranks. It marked a grim, unprecedented milestone in military history. For the first time, an armored warship had been successfully sunk by an electrically detonated submarine torpedo. The rules of naval warfare had been irrevocably rewritten, proving that even the most formidable technological marvels held a critical vulnerability, and that ingenuity could, indeed, equalize the playing field against overwhelming might. The dramatic and unprecedented sinking of the USS Cairo on December 12, 1862, sent a profound shockwave throughout the Union Navy, fundamentally altering their perception of naval warfare. The psychological impact was immediate and pervasive. If a vessel as formidable and seemingly impregnable as the Cairo, a symbol of industrial might and armored superiority, could be dispatched in mere minutes by a crude, unseen device, what hope did conventional wooden ships possess? The incident instilled a chilling new form of apprehension among Union naval commanders and their crews. The Yazoo River incident proved that no ship, regardless of its armor or firepower, was truly safe from this insidious, low-cost threat. In the aftermath, the operational doctrine of the Union Navy underwent a swift and significant shift. Commanders, now acutely aware of the vulnerability of their capital ships, began to demand specialized countermeasures. The ad hoc approach of using ironclads to detonate or sweep mines was immediately recognized as an unacceptable risk. This led to the urgent development and deployment of specialized vessels for mine clearance, or dredges, as they were called, smaller, less valuable boats specifically tasked with patrolling and clearing waterways of Confederate torpedoes before more valuable gunboats and transport fleets could advance. The War of Mines, once dismissed by many as a dishonorable and peripheral curiosity, abruptly rose to a position of critical strategic priority. The Confederacy, observing the deadly efficacy of their new weapon, dramatically intensified the production and placement of these devices in every river, port, and bay under their control. Throughout the remainder of the Civil War, these Confederate torpedoes would achieve a remarkable, if grim, success rate, sinking or severely damaging more than 40 Union vessels, a greater tally than any other form of Confederate naval armament. This was a remarkable transformation. The industrially superior Union, with its vast resources, was repeatedly wounded by a technology that any talented blacksmith could manufacture for a minimal cost. Yet, the legacy of the USS Cairo transcended its dramatic destruction. During its relatively brief but intensely active 8 months of service, the Ironclad had been a pivotal player in the Union's campaign to seize control of the Mississippi River. The Cairo participated in over a dozen significant combat actions, its powerful guns firing thousands of projectiles against Confederate positions. Its contributions were instrumental in securing Union control over hundreds of miles of crucial navigable waterways. Its Dahlgren cannons had silenced batteries at strategic choke points like Island No. 10, bombarded Fort Pillow into submission, and provided vital artillery support for Union ground troops in numerous operations throughout the Mississippi Valley. The statistics for its class were equally impressive. The 7 City-class ironclads collectively engaged in over 60 riverine encounters, fired an estimated 100,000 Larn projectiles, and were instrumental in the capture of 2 major Confederate fortresses and a dozen smaller fortified positions. More importantly, their mere presence, the daunting threat of their heavy guns and seemingly impenetrable armor, had forced the Confederates to divert precious resources from terrestrial defenses to construct elaborate riverine fortifications and develop the very countermeasures, like torpedoes, that ultimately claimed the Cairo. The strategic vision of the Anaconda Plan and President Lincoln's fervent desire to see the Mississippi run unimpeded to the sea ultimately came to fruition, though not without immense cost. Vicksburg, the Gibraltar of the West, finally fell on July 4, 1863, after a brutal and protracted 47-day siege. In this climactic struggle, Cairo's sister ironclads, especially the USS Cincinnati, Louisville, and Carondelet, played critical roles in the relentless riverine bombardment that helped to break the Confederate resistance. Their sustained shelling wore down the city's defenses and demoralized its garrison, paving the way for General Ulysses S. Grant's triumphant entry. The capture of Vicksburg, coupled with the fall of Port Hudson 5 days later, effectively cut the Confederacy in half, irrevocably splitting the rebellious states and fulfilling the core strategic objective of the Anaconda Plan. Lincoln's declaration marked a turning point, signaling that the Union's control over the vital artery was absolute, a foundational step toward ultimate victory. For over a century, the USS Cairo lay forgotten beneath the murky embrace of the Yazoo River. It rested in the deep, soft mud, a ghost of iron in an unmarked watery grave, its story fading into the annals of a brutal war. It remained an underwater enigma for 102 years until 1956, when a dedicated group of local treasure hunters, armed with rudimentary sonar and determined curiosity, serendipitously rediscovered its remarkably preserved hull. The excitement of the find ignited a new interest in the lost ironclad. By 1964, an ambitious recovery expedition, led by the distinguished historian Edwin C. Bears, then 42 years old and a meticulous scholar of the Civil War, secured the necessary permissions and resources to undertake the monumental task of raising the vessel. The complex salvage operation, conducted between 1964 and 1965, was an archaeological endeavor of unprecedented scale. Divers and engineers worked painstakingly to bring the ironclad to the surface piece by piece. What they unearthed was not merely a remarkably preserved hull, but an astonishing archaeological treasure trove. The mud of the Yazoo River, acting as a natural preservative, had protected not only the massive iron and timber structure, but also thousands of personal artifacts of the crew, frozen in time from the moment of the sinking. These included leather shoes, bottles of medicine, personal cutlery, naval equipment, and even projectiles still loaded in the cannons. Each item offered an intimate, tangible glimpse into the daily lives of the men who served aboard this revolutionary warship, providing invaluable insights into the social and logistical realities of Civil War naval life. The Cairo, once a war machine, had become a time capsule. Today, the salvaged USS Cairo rests as a silent, imposing memorial within the Vicksburg National Military Park. It stands as the only surviving city-class ironclad from the American Civil War, and indeed, one of the few Civil War-era ironclads of any class to have been preserved. Its story, from conception to destruction and eventual recovery, encapsulates the brutal, rapid transformation that the Civil War imposed upon the art of warfare. In just 4 years, naval combat evolved from fleets of wooden sailing ships armed with smoothbore cannons to armored ironclads, submarine torpedoes, revolutionary revolving gun turrets, advanced steam propulsion, and even primitive submarines. The Cairo, simultaneously a lethal predator that destroyed multiple Confederate ships, and tragically, a victim of the very new technology it helped usher in, perfectly embodies this turbulent transition. Its ability to destroy 4 enemy ships in 3 days at Memphis demonstrated the overwhelming power of armored iron over vulnerable wood. Its own spectacular sinking by a $50 torpedo proved a timeless lesson. No technology remains supreme for long. Ingenuity will always seek and exploit vulnerabilities in brute force, and warfare is, at its core, a relentless Darwinian duel of adaptation and counter-adaptation. In the murky waters of the Mississippi and the Yazoo, where the future of a nation was decided cannon blast by cannon blast and torpedo explosion by torpedo explosion, the USS Cairo and its iron siblings wrote a crucial chapter in American military history, not merely in the Union's eventual victory, but in the irreversible transformation of naval warfare that would shape conflicts for generations to come. The USS Cairo, a monument of ironclad innovation and a symbol of Union might, met its end not by cannon fire, but by an unseen force beneath the Yazoo's surface. This abrupt demise inaugurated a new terrifying chapter in naval warfare. Yet, its brief, impactful service, alongside its sister ships, ensured Union control of critical waterways, contributing irrevocably to Vicksburg's ultimate fall and the fulfillment of the Anaconda Plan. For over a century, the vessel lay entombed, a silent testament to a pivotal moment, until its eventual recovery brought its story and its countless artifacts back into the light of day, offering a tangible link to a transformative era. The Cairo's journey, from its swift construction and formidable reign to its sudden demise and eventual resurrection, serves as a profound historical anchor. It illustrates the relentless, often brutal pace of technological evolution in conflict, a Darwinian duel where human ingenuity constantly seeks vulnerabilities in established power. It is a stark reminder that no triumph of engineering, no matter how imposing, remains impervious forever. Adaptation is the only constant in the crucible of war. The unforeseen effectiveness of the torpedo against the ironclad marked a critical turning point. Considering this historical shift, what do you believe is the next unseen or underestimated threat that could fundamentally alter modern military strategies today? Share your insights in the comments below. If the revolutionary changes in naval warfare resonate with your curiosity, we invite you to explore another chapter in technological adaptation. Our previous investigation into the early attempts at submarine warfare during the Civil War offers further insights into this era of rapid innovation. To continue uncovering the hidden files of history, where forgotten narratives illuminate the present, ensure you like this video and subscribe to Hidden Files for more deep dives into the past.